28 months. Let's go. YBBAAA, yeah.
What's up, gamers? Thank you, Daily Bean. Thank you for the 28 months. Wild. Anyway, gracias, Vagabond 009. I will see you all soon. Gonna get some water and maybe some orange juice. I'm gonna go loco here and have some orange. Ooh. Maybe I'll make a smoothie. There's also a lot of helicopter noise happening. All my windows are open and it shows. Do I have time to make a smoothie? I'm gonna do it. I'll be quick.
Dr. Pepper. Watch out indeed. Watch out indeed. Watch out indeed. Watch out indeed. A little heavy-handed on the lemon. Oh, that's fine. It's good for you. Then, of course, a cold and bubbly Dr. Pepper. 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 Dr. Pepper. What are my four kings of music? Oh, fascinating. St. Vincent, Bjork, Dolly Parton, and the Spice Girls. What are my four kings of music? Done. Easy. Or St. Vincent, Bjork, Dolly Parton, and the Spice Girls. Watch out indeed. 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 Watch out. A cold and bubbly Dr. Pepper. A cold and bubbly Dr. Pepper. A cold and bubbly Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper. I know, I'm telling you, it's big hair day today. It's big hair day today. Then, of course, a cold and bubbly Dr. Pepper. A cold and bubbly Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper. My 7-Eleven does sell loose cans, and it's the best. A cold and bubbly. Watch out indeed. 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 Watch out.
All right, gamers, smoothie has been made. We are about to get started. I will see you soon. Okay, gamers. Okay, everybody's talking about stuff. Oh, let me take my lens cap off. Boop. Let me go. Oh, hello. Oh, wow, my hair's looking really red today. Look at that. Look at that. Tater, would you like to come up and say hi? He's been yelling at me this morning. And you know what? I respect it. Got something to say. And a lot of thoughts and opinions. Come here, buddy. Come on up. There you go. Ooh, bud. He kind of bailed on the jump. It was very cute. He didn't quite make it up. Come on, Tater. You can try again. I'll help you up if you put your 2 paws up, buddy. But if you're on the ground, it's hard for me to help you. Oh, there we go. There we go. My little man. My little man. Wow, lots of Canadians in the chat today. Very exciting. I've only been in Canada once. Been pacing around the kitchen because I need a break from the dishes. Didn't want to sit down. Now you're dizzy. Oh no. I don't totally mind doing dishes. It depends on my mood. I've gotten relatively good at, as I cook, I do the dishes. You know, it's especially helpful if you're cooking with somebody. Yeah, Tater jumped all by himself. No assistance at all. I'm patting his butt. I'm patting his back. He's got a curly tail. I think he's pleased about it. Ooh, Tater. Oh, Tater, does that feel good, buddy? Does that feel good? Yeah, oh yeah. Ooh, sorry, I'm giving Tater a good massage. Anyway, ooh, good boy. I have a glass of cold, still water today, filtered. Yes, please smell it, Tater. And then I have a smoothie I just made. Kale, banana, cinnamon, peanut butter smoothie. It's very delicious. And I highly recommend. Beep, beep. Beep, 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 beep. Yeah, show your little face, Tater. When is America gonna have healthcare for everybody? Ever? You think we'll ever have it? I feel like we have to, right? Right? Someone say yes. No, right. All right, not a lot of faith in the American healthcare system, which is reasonable. Not in my lifetime. Wow, that's upsetting. Some parts will. We'll see. Anyway, how's everyone's weekend? I had a lovely weekend. It finally felt like summer, and that was really great. And I did a bunch of fun stuff. Had a little games and snacks party on Saturday. And then yesterday, relaxed, but in a nice way where it wasn't just like, what do I want to do today? I'm bored. It was like, I'm going to go read in the park and I'm going to watch a movie. And it was really nice. Make a delicious dinner. Because I did only eat junk food all weekend. So yesterday I was like, we have to eat a real meal with vegetables. And it was very delicious. I had a New York Times. Was it like a miso? I'm looking it up now. It was very good. It was a ginger scallion steamed fish recipe. It was salmon. It was good. And then a ginger, it was like a salad with a ginger dressing. It's really yummy. Aw, Tuesday's lonely without Maggie. Canada's not as for everyone as it should be, sure. At least better. But the thing about having COVID is your trash doesn't smell. Ouch, Tater. Ah! It's not HelloFresh. That was a New York Times recipe. Ah, Tater. I don't really do the boxed meals. They seem not bad. I mean, I've done them before, but now I'm just like, just buy a recipe and it seems to be effective. Those boxed meals, sorry, I'm scared of Tater right now. Those boxed meals are, I feel like, not always good for someone who lives alone. It's a lot of food. He jumped and he's ready to jumble. Yeah. It was some classic Tater right there. Tater, be good. Anyway, we're going to watch more Shock of the New. It's been a minute. We're going to episode 3, which is the landscape of pleasure. Excited. And we'll see how I'm feeling afterwards if you want to play a game. I might just watch Shock of the New. And then tomorrow, I think we'll get back to Resident Evil. How does that sound? Do we like that idea? Boop, boop. Hands are not toys. Oh, good news. He went to my bathroom and is immediately licking his butthole. Great. Great. Alrighty. Shall we get started? How do I make this full screen? Oh, there we go. No. No. How do I make this full screen? Quality. Maybe I won't be able to. Let me see. We are on, oops. I'll show you what I'm looking at. Really subsumed. Send me a great link with a better quality video. But I'm trying to figure out how to make it full screen. This is a picture-in-picture. Well, we'll do it like this. This is maybe the best we can do. How's that for everyone? I don't know how to make this full screen. So, here we go. Powered by Dailymotion. If I click this, okay, hold on. I'm going to do something really quick. Let's see if this will take me to a place I can make it full screen. No. I have not watched the movie Pearl. Alright, well, I guess that's that. I don't know why we can't watch it full screen. Anyway, shall we get started? Let us do so. Okay. This intro is incredible. Let me know how we like the audio. I could have sworn you could full screen these. Okay. Well, if you find it, let me know. I'm gonna turn the volume down a pinch. I bet Pearl is good. I enjoyed X. I didn't love X. Audio's good. Great.
One of the great projects of art is to reconcile us with the world. Now, of course, not all art wants to do that or tries to, but from time to time, some artists do give you a glimpse of a universe which is neither hostile nor indifferent, nor indeed in much need of change. And in such a place you can move without strain, because in some way it completes your nature. Now, for Picasso and Matisse and for the Fauves, the Mediterranean was such a place. It was the sea that stood for a kind of timeless sensual satisfaction beyond history.
Oh my God, the guy in the background.
As for a continuous historical tradition back to the antique past. This is what happened to it within 60 years of the paintings they made on the coast. Endless kitsch, infinitely prolonged.
This man could have used an editor, you know.
No wonder their work looks like a lost paradise now.
Oh shit. Editing is fun. The Dailymotion page. Does that one have a full screen link? Or a full screen button? Sure. We're 2 minutes in. Send it over. Great. Boop. And then... Okay. Okay, just a second. And then boop, boop. Full screen. Okay, great. Thank you. Ooh, when is the new Zelda coming out? Pretty soon, right? 2 minutes. Boom. Wait, no, we missed a... Oh, shit. Oh, God, I'm gonna ban from Twitch. Shut up. Okay, don't report the boobs we're about to see. Oh, God, no! Why? It's European, it's okay. I thought we'd drop out, thank you. No!
Calling the cops.
Don't look, don't look. Why? Why is this? This video's horny. These videos are horny. God, Jesus. Hey, Tater. Like, I know it's European, so it's not, like... But they showed just a lot of topless women for no reason. Like, this is a long montage. Why? But that's what I want to know. What? Like, it's just... Move on, move on! Move on! Okay.
Of course, the 19th century
Jesus.
did not invent the art of pleasure, but it broadened it.
Baronook.
There was some truth
Thank
to
you for
Talleyrand's
subscribing.
remark that those who were not alive before the revolution,
Uh-oh.
meaning the French Revolution, did not know the sweetness of life. For the rich, it was absolutely true, and in fact the pleasure principle in 18th century art belonged to one class, the aristocracy. The great image of civilized pleasure in painting was the fête champêtre, a gathering of people enjoying themselves in the open air.
Okay.
Culture preening itself in the presence of its opposite, nature. These picnics begin with
Why? This was not playing very well is the issue.
and Giorgione in the 16th
I have to
century.
pause it, let it load a bit.
Antoine Watteau painted them in France in the early 18th century, and they became a staple of court art. Thomas Gainsborough married the fête champêtre to the formal portrait, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews contemplating nature as condensed in their own
I
property.
feel like I've seen this one before, but I don't remember the context. Was it from Sister Wendy? Seems
The
familiar.
landscape and the figures in it, their clothes, their possessions, all these things stand for the class
Wendy
that
talked about this,
also
great.
owns the painting, which is normal in art. But within a few decades of the French Revolution, there was a new ruling class in
I like
France
that
and
everyone's
England,
looking at the painter
the
in these.
bourgeoisie. It wanted to be depicted. It wanted its pleasures described and its life documented. And this triumphant middle class included not only the conservative painters, but some of the most advanced artists of its time.
Okay. I'm trying to sit like a normal person so I don't ruin my back and knees, but it's hard. I just want to sit like a goblin all the time. I do quite like these paintings. I find them very pretty. And I do love that everyone's looking at the artist. Okay. Not going back to the boobs, but knowing this, it'll probably show more for no reason. Again, I think this video series could trim the fat a little bit. Wendy was to the point. We still got lots of shots of her on a boat, but it was like 3 seconds and they were perfect. So, yeah. I do wish this also had like labels of like what we're looking at. Like, here's the name and the artist. Gotta say, smoothie was a good choice on my part. Eating a lot of kale in this, so that always feels good.
For most of the last 100 years, Impressionism has been the most popular of all art movements. The appetite for Impressionist painting never seems to wear off, and at the same time, Impressionism seems to us to represent a lost world.
Lost
A pre-modern world whose icons have very little to do with the realities of our own time and culture. And both these things are true for the same reason. Around 1870, the field of paintable pleasure dramatically widened. Impressionism found its subjects in pleasures which nearly everybody above street level could have, including the life of the painters themselves and of their friends. One thing they all had in common was the feeling that the life of the city and the village and the cafes and the parks, the salons, the bedrooms, the seaside and the banks of the Seine could become a vision of Eden.
I like that one quite a bit.
A world of ripeness and bloom with an untroubled sense of wholeness.
Are the days of being this kind of painter over? I realize illustrators,
The
and there are
Impressionists had
obviously
their moment
artists,
at the
but
start of the longest continuous peace that Europe would ever know, 44 years from 1870 to 1914. a lost world that you need to be very old to remember.
Like, I feel like illustrators are more like working in media, film and TV, or like doing backgrounds or something. But like, what, like, do they have just like, I am a painter and I paint
By the
landscapes
Middle
and
80s, the
portraits?
Impressionist love of spontaneity
Rich
was
kids get to
being
do fine
challenged
art.
by younger artists. They saw it as the dictatorship of the eye over the mind. The unit, the building block of Impressionism, had been the brushstroke, which was as personal as handwriting.
Wow.
The
Ooh, that's
greatest of the
pretty.
younger artists was Georges Seurat.
I also
who
don't like
replaced
that
the
they
stroke with
start
the
zoomed
dot.
in on the paintings. Start with
Hundreds
the
of
full
them.
thing. I want to see the full
Thousands.
thing and then show me the
The
details.
dot
Like,
was
you're
impersonal.
showing me this
It
and I don't know
grew in
what it looks
colonies
like.
coral.
I don't know. That
It
bothers me a
stiffened the
bit.
shapes and gave them the archaic Egyptian stillness that Seurat
Who's who
contrived
licensed
as the
stuff to make
antidote
up
to the Impressionist love of the moment. Above all, the dot meant control of colour, step by step. Seurat's eye for colour was one of the subtlest in all
I do
art
love the
history,
texture on
and
these.
he wanted each touch to have the analytic clearness of scientific thought. His subject matter was that of Impressionism, but his aims were not. He wanted to give his images the density and permanence of classical
I
art.
love that.
Order, system, dignity. He didn't want snapshots. He wanted to reveal the processional aspect of modern life, something formal and rigorous and akin to the heroic dandyism that Baudelaire had seen in Paris 30 years before.
I want to show the moderns moving about on friezes, stripped to their essentials. To place them in paintings arranged in harmonies of colors, in harmonies of lines, line and color fitted to each other.
He did this in an enormous painting of Parisians strolling on a Sunday afternoon on a grassy island in the Seine called La Grande Jatte. Here, the middle class at play got the ceremonious nobility of treatment that art once reserved for gods and kings. Here, pleasure takes on the gravity of history painting. Seurat built his space like a Renaissance fresco with the most exacting precision. It's held together by complicated rhymes and chords of shape, some of which you hardly notice at first.
It is
The
so
woman
dramatic.
fishing there is the twin of that tiny figure in the extreme distance.
I guess
The
so.
monkey's tail emulates the hook of the dandy's cane.
Okay, these feel
The
like a stretch,
decorum
but
of
alright.
posture and gesture, the distances people allow themselves on that green lawn, is turned into the decorum of classical art itself. He's a bit ironic about his middle-class moderns. They glide about on the grass like tin toys on wheels. But the irony is part of the modernity. Just because it is a distanced painting, it makes you aware of its semantics. And the spectacle of art as a language fascinated Seurat. He had grasped that there is something atomized, divided about modernist awareness. To build a unified meaning, the subject had to be broken down into molecules and fragments, and then reassembled under the eye of formal order. Hence the dots. You could make reality permanent by displaying it as a web of tiny stillnesses. That is what La Grande Jatte was really about. Infinite division, infinite relationships. Claude
Also, going back to my
Monet had come
question
the same
earlier,
place
I
by
know that there are
different
people who are
routes.
making fine art. I'm
If
more
Monet had
like,
died in the
this
same
is
year
all
as
I
Seurat,
do is make fine
1891,
art and I make
we
a
honoured
living.
him as the
Is that
essential
a thing that
impressionist, and
exists?
sooner or later pass on by.
I mean, I guess there's like Banksy. That's, I don't
None
know.
of the Impressionists had praised the surface of landscape more eloquently. He was to trees and grass and wind what Renoir was to women's skin. But at the same time, not very much that Monet painted before his 50th birthday had the complete reflective permanence of great art.
They're very pretty
The problem
shots.
was to deepen the game of seeing, to show that the eye was connected to the brain with its immense powers of discrimination.
Okay.
But to do that, one must possess the subject. This kind of meditation needs pleasure and not pain. It has to come from the center of the self and not from its disturbed edges. The novelist Gustave Flaubert once remarked that art is a luxury. It requires calm, white hands. And I suppose the supreme example of this in the life of a painter is the garden which Claude Monet built for himself at Giverny about 50 miles outside Paris.
Pretty. believe I've been to his house, and it is lovely. Wow. I love wildflowers. Like, I love a big wild garden like that. I think it's gorgeous.
Ten years later, in 1893, Monet was past 50 when he started work on the second half, which was a water garden across the road. Now, this project obsessed him for 30 years. At first, the authorities didn't want him to do it at all because he wanted to divert a little stream nearby, and they were afraid it was going to cause a water shortage. Well, it didn't, but what it did do was supply him with the motifs for his greatest paintings for the last half of his life. His water garden was a work of art, and it released a stream of others.
I didn't know it wasn't
Hovering around in
natural.
it, he was in complete control. He had made the subject as well as the paintings. It was, as one art historian rather elegantly put it, his harem of nature. And so
Harem
all
of
late
nature.
Monet is right
Ooh.
here. That
Ye.
endless inspection
Well
and
said,
contemplation
Stender.
of a
Thank you for the
drowned,
4 months.
reflected world, the sky
I believe
and
we
the
are
water,
talking Monet.
the lily pads, the
I've painted
willows,
this with Matt.
and this Japanese bridge.
once. It is really lovely. I painted that. That's what me and Matt painted. He's like, it'll be easy. I'm like, what? This is what you chose. Actually, it was that one. I did a master's study, and I was like, art streamers are the closest to the classical meaning of fine artists that we have these days. They are paid by patrons who support them for their art. Yeah, pretty much exactly the same with the internet in between. That makes sense. Yeah.
The pond
It was
as
fun, but
artificial
I'm
as
like, why
painting
was that so
itself.
hard?
It was flat.
I would love
as
to
a
do more
painting
master study with Matt.
What showed on it, the clouds and lily pads and cat's paws of wind, was caught in a shallow space, just on the surface, like the space of painting. The willows touched it like brushes. No foreground, no background, a web of connections. Monet's water lilies were a slice of infinity. In them, emptiness matters as much as fullness. Reflections have the weight of things. To seize the indefinite, to fix what is unstable, to give form to sights so complex, so nuanced, that they can hardly be
Nuanced.
named. This was a basic project of modernism.
Wow, that is
It
very
went
cool.
against the smug view of reality that materialism gives us.
When I saw the water lilies in person, I was like
And
15.
it could only be
I didn't
developed in a
appreciate them.
context of visual pleasure. No distractions. Its other pioneer, but a very different one, was Paul Cézanne. From 1880 to the year of his death, 1906, Cézanne spent most of his time working here in the south of France, in a studio outside
Lovely.
Aix-en-Provence. This studio
Wow,
is one
look
of
at
the
that
sacred places of the
ladder?
modern
I
mind.
don't even know what that is, but
A
that's
kind
gorgeous.
of reliquary. But the irritable diabetic
Ooh.
ghost who haunts it still baffles us, partly because he spent those 25 years secluded in a small town, and we don't know much about what he really thought, and partly, too, because so much later painting claimed Cézanne as its ancestor.
Gorgeous.
In an earlier program, I mentioned Cézanne's effect on Cubism as a painter looking for structures in a welter of uncertainties, a genius of doubt, which he was. But he never imagined Cubism, and he would have loathed the very idea of abstract painting. The one great desire of his work was to return you to the world,
Wow, are those
to
real
the
human
look
sculls?
and feel of things, to prove the coherence
Interesting
of what
he omitted
saw
it from
when he
the,
looked, for example,
you
at
know,
some onions on
baby
a
statue
table.
painting. Look at all those onions. Why the hell do you need so many onions? That's way too many freaking onions. How many onions? And like 6 of Monet's water lilies. Nice. French onion soup. Oh, right. There's a fully human skeleton in my closet in my school. Was it a real human?
He took an enormous amount of time and trouble over his paintings, sitting after sitting. By the time a still life was finished, the onions were sprouting, the apples withered.
The apples withered. I love the way this man speaks, and I more importantly love making fun of the way this man speaks. Man, is that how... I don't think I've ever seen an apple go all wrinkly like that. Gross. Man, painting seems so cool. I wish I was better at sketching and painting. I need to practice sketching.
The landscape could
I
not
also just
decay,
thought they got dark
and
and soft.
Cézanne
Yeah,
made a
that
point
wrinkling
of
is
trudging
like,
out to
ugh.
his view day after day, lugging his portable easel in all weathers, until he died of a chill that he caught from painting in the open air.
Wow, Super King's TV. That's fascinating and cool.
He was a Provençal.
I didn't even know
and
you
was
could
out for
donate
claims
your
that before
body
it
just
says
to
anything else.
stuff like that.
This landscape was in
Like,
his blood.
Legally,
Clear,
can you own real
bony,
human bones?
archaic,
And I'm
as
talking over this,
recognizable
but
on an instinctive
now I
level
want to know.
as the taste of olives or cold water.
Not sure how legal it was. Gotcha.
And what did he paint? Approximations. The art schools used to teach that Cézanne wanted to reduce nature to spheres and cubes and cylinders. This is nonsense. He was a most ungeometrical painter.
Ungeometrical painter.
Instead of clear forms, he set down tiny adjustments. You see him engaging his subject, inch by inch, minute by minute.
Minute by minute.
Cézanne had no time for smooth generalizations. And by the end of his life, he wasn't interested in the impressionist snapshot either, the one-day painting that set down one scene under one fleeting condition of light. He painted the same motifs over and over again without ever once repeating himself. The hill that became his emblem was Mont Saint-Victoire.
Wow, fascinating, Choco Bears. Also, what's it like working in forensic anthropology? That sounds
He wanted his
cool.
images to be the accumulated evidence of thought. Every painting a deposit, a sort of uneven crust of observations. The more he painted, the more he saw. And the more he saw, the more manifold and unattainable truth became. No painter ever achieved more in such isolation. Instead of facility, he had an immense scrupulousness, and so he was frustrated most of the time, right up to the end.
Right up to the end.
A few weeks before his death, he wrote a letter
Oh, you
to his
build
son
robots.
in Paris.
Cool. Oh, cool.
I must
Choco
tell you
Bears.
that as a painter,
Fascinating.
I've
You did it in
become more
Europe?
clear-sighted
Wow.
before nature.
I'll have to unpack
But
on
with
this
me,
one.
the realization of my sensations is always painful. I cannot attain the intensity that is unfolded before my senses. I do not have the magnificent richness of coloring that animates nature.
But the idea that nature is endless suggests that it is also paradise.
Choco Bears are
And
Rosen
other
Scholar. I
painters than
believe it. One of the
Cézanne
smartest
believed
sweeties.
so too.
Makes sense to me. Wow, look at those weird ass shutters. Also, this epic music for this like quiet countryside. I love it. Can I have a PhD, Choco Bears? Ooh, hiking.
What happened was that
In
artists
a collared
were looking
shirt
for
and
the kind of
slacks.
landscape that suited the pictures
Corduroys.
they wanted to do.
Hunter, thank you for the gift
Van
set. Super
Gogh's
King's
disappearance
TV.
to Arles was part of that, and so were the trips that Derain Matisse made to Collioure in the early 1900s. What they were looking for was a greater purity of natural sensation. Instead of grey Paris, they wanted the blue sky and the silvery olives and the red earth and the lavender. It wasn't a question of detaching colour from nature. Rather, the aim was to find in nature a special kind of chromatic intensity, colour that spoke directly to the psyche and could be concentrated on a canvas.
Ooh, pretty.
The man who did most to bring in the idea of independent symbolic colour and free its role in art was a brilliant histrionic fugitive named Paul Gauguin. Now everybody knows something about him. He was the archetypal dropout, the man who gave up banking to paint, who went half crazy with his mad friend Van Gogh trying to set up an artist commune in the Yellow House at Arles,
The Van
and
Gogh
who
or
left
Van
his
Gogh?
wife for the embraces of the Tahitians.
Genuinely want to know.
What provoked his famous escape was the Great Paris Exposition, which had a Tahitian sideshow, and travel brochures which read,
The lucky inhabitants of the remote South Sea paradise of Tahiti know life only at its brightest.
You can say it both ways, thank you.
The idea of the noble savage living in a blissful state of virtue in the fruitful bosom of nature was one of the great fantasies of European thought, and Tahiti was the proof that this creature existed. So the myth of Tahiti blossomed very quickly. Moreover, Paradise was a French colony. So in 1891, Gauguin set off, cheered on by his friends and admirers, who nevertheless wisely stayed in Paris. Instead of paradise, he found a trading port. Instead of noble savages, prostitutes. A culture wrecked by Bibles and booze, its rituals dead, its memory lost, its population down from 40,000 in Captain Cook's time to 6,000 in Gauguin's.
Damn.
So the paradise Gauguin painted was deceptive, even pessimistic, a lost Eden full of cultural ghosts. And his Tahitians were like survivors of a golden age that they could not remember.
I know this painting, and it's
Those
kind of a
names
bummer.
I want to
I don't
perpetuate.
think Wendy talked about it. I'm trying to remember who talked
Golden
about it.
skin,
Might have been Great Art
their
Explained.
searching animal odor, their tropical savors.
It was his colour that pointed to the future. The colours of Tahiti were brilliant, and Gauguin used them with a moody intensity. He believed that colour could act almost like words, that it held an exact counterpart for every emotion and every nuance of feeling. Colour became the interpreter between the mind and the world. It was a language made up of patches on a flat surface. Its job was to express rather than to describe. For younger painters, this was a tremendous liberty. But they wanted to use it inside France, and its natural theatre was the South. For colour was the sign of vitality, the emblem of well-being.
Interesting choice of music, I feel like, after that last section. But that's fine. Well said, Geese Peep. Well said. Ooh, that eggplant is so pretty. Hi, Tater. Here for the John T music? Okay. Again, I think we can trim the fat here a little bit. Like, you could have some of the voiceover over the fruits, I think. I would love Robert Hughes to say these nuts. Maybe it's music of the era. Maybe it's not the only music of the era. Look, I'm fine with it. It is just a fascinating transition. The food does look good. Hi, Tater. Look at that guy playing his little wire or something. Ooh, fancy wines, fancy crabs. This does... They are selling it as a fun tropical destination. Okay. It's a food show now? 'Cause honestly, I'd be here for that. Cutting the cheese, very French. Okay, more wine, please. Yep, a little guitar.
What came out of this was a movement
Yeah, the
named
crab was
Fauvism,
sleeping in
which
my
essentially
tummy.
meant the work of three painters in the early 1900s.
Oh, nice.
André Derain, Maurice de Vlaminck,
Hi, buddy.
and Henri Matisse.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
The word fauve means wild beast. It was a tag given them in 1905 by a dubious critic who had been offended by the intensity of their paintings. And what they produced was
Look at all
less
the
a
florals,
movement than
floral
an
pictures.
episode, a meeting of instincts among painters who liked
Ow.
strong sensation
Better.
but had no binding theory.
Ow, ow.
If you can imagine an aesthetic based solely on exhilaration, this came closer.
Tater's good. He's bitey. Ha! But, you know, that means Tater's healthy and happy. Ow! Ha, bud. Why? Why do you gotta get the arm meat? Ah, I love the colors. Is this Matisse, he said? Ow, Jesus, dude. You have my headphones. Ow! Ow! No! Stop. Tater, stop it. Tater! Why are you so soft and warm and then hurty? Okay, good. Bye. Run. Yeah, Tater's a cat. I think a cat looks so fun. Honestly, it is. Yeah, Shaka the Tater. It's true. No, I was also out a lot this weekend, so Tater I think is a little more like, I need stimulation! I need to bite him, honestly.
The
Ooh, I
master
like
of
this one.
reflection within pleasure was Henri Matisse.
I'm gonna do this.
He was born in
Or
1869
master
and
say,
he
taking a
died in
picture.
1954. And nowhere in the span of his work do you feel a
Don't have those
trace
kinds
of
of
the
paintings,
alienation and conflict to which modernism consigned us. His studio was a place of equilibrium that produced images of refuge for 60 continuous years. In 1904, Matisse got interested in Seurat's technique of
please say no.
pointillism, the coloured dots that were being used by his followers, among them Matisse's friend, the painter Signac. Signac had a house at Saint-Tropez, and Matisse went there in the summer of 1904. The result was one of those awkward demonstration pieces of modern art where Matisse's literary instincts merged with his fantasies about Arcadia, a picnic by the sea at Saint-Tropez with a lateen-rigged boat and a pine tree and a cluster of spotty bulbous nudes and a thoroughly Baudelairean title, Luxury, Calm and Pleasure. It was Matisse's first image of the Mediterranean as a state of mind, a clumsy painting, but a portent. In 1905, Matisse went with André Derain to paint in the little coastal village of Collioure near the Spanish border. This was one of the crucial moments in the short history of Fauvism because at Collioure both men painted their most radical pictures so far. This was the point at which Matisse's colour broke free. Thick blobs of paint one moment, bare canvas the next, and the harsh glitter of local colour to mimic the dazzle of afternoon light on the water. The new Matisses were very shocking indeed. Their defenders were uncertain about them, and their detractors thought them barbaric. Particularly offensive was Matisse's use of this new colour system, discordant and ragged, in the familiar matrix of the salon portrait, even though the victim was his wife.
Do love the colors. I feel like if this were Wendy, I feel like him saying the victim was his wife was him being like, ugly, you know?
Eden before the fall, Gauguin's dream, inhabited by men and women without a history, languid as plants or energetic as animals.
Tater, what a weird little jump you just did.
The primitive look of these two huge paintings,
really
the dance
weird,
and
buddy.
music, still throws you. Matisse presents his image of music at
you
its
okay?
origins,
What are you
enacted
doing?
by half a dozen
Tater's
naked
toy. I'll be
cavemen,
right back.
prehistorical, pre-social almost, and definitely pre-technological. A reed flute or two, the slap of hand on skin. And yet, how powerful that editing down is. The simplest elements, earth, sky, body, each allotted its own local colour and nothing more.
I do like the simplicity.
And within that simplicity, what energy. The dance is one of the few entirely convincing images of ecstasy made in the 20th century.
What a thing to
That
say!
circle of twisting, stamping maenads takes you right back down the line to the red figure vases of Greece and beyond them to the caves. It tries to be as old as dance itself. Matisse got the idea in the summer of 1905 at Collioure while watching some fishermen and peasants in a circular dance.
Okay, can you guys take off your clothes and make yourselves red? Thank you. Yes, the image of sensuality and ecstasy. What's the little doll in the middle of it for? The choice? Those look like comfortable shoes. I would wear those shoes. Oh, I thought that was a kid. I'm glad we're gonna watch this dance in full. Akiana says, this video is one of the only other totally believable depictions of ecstasy from the 20th century. Yeah, agree. Later! Let's trim the fat here, okay? Wendy knows when to get in and out. I also feel like this man, when he speaks, and I've seen other people do this too, they will talk in a way that is so overworked that it's hard to follow. And I'm like, just use plain language. Like, speaking in this weird way doesn't make you seem more intelligent. It just is like, everything is like obfuscated or whatever.
The other side of
you
this
know the
coin
word?
was an intense interest in civilized craft.
Thanks for zooming in on the
Islamic
titties first.
pottery, Persian miniatures. Matisse loved pattern, and through it, he gives you the illusion of a completely full world where everything, background, foreground, and in between, acts equally on the eye. One of the results was the Red Studio, which he painted in 1912.
Wow.
On one hand, he wants to bring you into the painting, to make you fall into it, like walking through the looking glass. That box of crayons is put just under your hand, as it was under his. But then it isn't a real space, and because it's all soaked in red, a red beyond ordinary experience, it describes itself as a fiction, as art. Like a Persian miniature, it's all inlaid pattern. And more than that, everything in it is a work either of art or of craft. The paintings are Matisse's. So are the sculptures.
I
The
do
only
love
hint
to
of
have a
nature
painting
is the
within a
plant.
painting.
But it's a very
think that's
tame
fun.
plant, a house plant trying
I
to
really
be a
like
work
this
of
one.
art. And it's trained to rhyme with the curves of that chair. And those curves are also reflected on the other side of the room in a pink painting of a nude.
Of a nude.
So the Red Studio is, among other things, a poem about how painting refers to itself, how art nourishes itself from other art, and how, to this cast of mind, art can form its own republic of pleasure, a Switzerland, a parenthesis within the real world, a paradise.
I mean, sure. Okay, fine.
In 1916, Matisse moved more or less permanently to the south of France, to Nice. He found an apartment in the Hotel Regina, named after Queen Victoria, who had stayed there.
Cool. Nice looking
When
hotel.
the Great War broke out in 1914, he was 45, too old to fight, too wise to imagine that his painting could interpose itself between history and its victims, and too certain of his aims as an artist to change them anyway. I don't suppose that any great artist since the 18th century has so devoted his work to an idea of comfort and refuge. Matisse once said that he wanted his art to have the effect of a good armchair upon a tired businessman. Now,
Okay,
20
sure.
years ago, when we thought that art was going to change the world, this seemed at best rather a limited aim. But now that I'm sure that it can't and it won't, I can only admire Matisse's common sense. He thought that an educated bourgeoisie is the one audience that an advanced art can claim. And it seems that history has shown he was right. Anyway,
That
this is
seemed
where
like
he
a
lives,
what?
what he paints.
He's basically like,
Right
look,
indoors.
if you're rich and educated,
And how
you
fitting
like
it is that
art.
so many
If
of
you're a
Matisse's best
fucking
paintings have been
uneducated
done in
plebe,
pubs
you
and
don't.
hotels. The room is a metaphor of their nature. A private place, always fresh.
Nice, good work,
signifying
Nightbot.
luxury,
Start of the Grace
the
Train, end of the
playpen
Grace
adult
Train.
mind.
Love the power move of that
A
one.
room with a view. And the common theme of Matisse's Mediterranean interiors is that of looking out on benevolent nature from a position of absolute security. The filter between those two worlds is the shutters.
It's the shutters. Grace job, very good. Wow, this is tangled to hell. An untangled
My
Tater's
purpose
toy.
is to render my motion. This state of soul is created by the objects which surround me and which react in me, from the horizon to myself. I express as naturally the space and the objects which are situated there as if I had only the sea and the sky in front of me. That is the simplest thing in the world.
Hi, Tater. I'll get your toy in a minute. I gotta untangle it, buddy. We're watching art, okay? Yes, I see why this would remind you of Monty Python. I actually haven't seen a lot of Monty Python. I've seen some of the individual stuff, but none of the movies. Very British in a way that doesn't always vibe with me, but I should watch it. Hi, Tater. Can you give me a couple seconds to get your toy fixed, and then we'll play again? Still moving. This one is less saturated than the other ones they showed us. Does feel very beachy.
In order to paint my pictures, I need to remain for several days in the same state of mind.
Oops.
And I don't find this in any atmosphere but that of the Côte d'Azur.
There were other painters who believed their emotional temperature was always right on the Mediterranean. Notably Pierre Bonnard, who after years of painting trips to the south, finally moved to this house near Cannes in 1925.
Cool.
Matisse would never have lived in a garden like this. In some ways, Bonnard was his opposite, the little bourgeois against the grand one, a poet of unpruned domestic intimacy rather than of the grand apartment. Matisse's compositions carried an air of formal grandeur, of declamation in the higher tradition of French art. But Bonnard's did not. In still life, he took things as he found them, or at least he painted them to seem so. The arrangement of jugs and bowls and plates on that breakfast table seems fragile and chancy. They've strayed into view. And even when the still life is more arranged, like this one, he vaporizes it with colour and with loose brushwork, so that it seems soft, half-formed, ready to disappear, as moments do.
Ready to disappear. Oh.
Everything in Bonnard is seen with the private eye, not the public one. The food about the house, the flowers around the house, and the woman.
That is interesting. I didn't really think... Yeah, so much of this does feel like sort of private
She's almost
domesticity.
always the same woman, Marie Bossin.
Domestic life.
Bonnard met her in 1894, and after a liaison that lasted more than 30 years, he finally married her. They then lived
Nice.
together until
Good bloodshot.
1942, when she died.
Oh, sad.
Far from being the contented painter's wife in a cottage in the south of France, she was a nagging, jealous shrew who made life impossible for his friends.
Let's
knew
unpack
nothing
on that
about
one, but
painting,
let's just
couldn't
move
even
on.
cook. But he was utterly and masochistically loyal to her. Bonnard was obsessed with the facts of domesticity and the memories of sexual pleasure, the privacy and the glimpsing, the feeling that the eye is privileged, a party to all secrets. The sexuality of early Bonnard is still amazing. At a certain point around 1920, she stops getting older. When she was 60, Bonnard was still painting her 30-year-old body.
I don't know, maybe she just aged really well. You ever think about that guy? Huh?
But she is always apart, self-absorbed.
I don't know, looks like somebody who
spinal.
could be 60.
The perpetual Susanna in her bath, with Bonnard as the perpetually peeping elder, dissolving her in light, reconstituting her in colour, possessing her again and again from a distance.
Yes, let's luxuriate on the naked body again, please. You could show some rain. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Why do they, like, make all the nudes seem so horny? Like, what I liked about Sister Wendy, she didn't shy away from people's sexuality in paintings. But the camera work and everything didn't, like, luxuriate on them in the same kind of way. You know? Scroll up her naked body, please. Thank you. Let's have some zoom in shots of the T and A. All right. Scroll down. I gotta make sure she's got him. There we go. Thank you. It is bizarre to only paint your wife naked. Or maybe that's all they're showing us. Theater. Okay, yep, another bad shot. Oh yeah, zoom in. I gotta make sure, you know, I'm seeing what you're seeing, which is titties. I know it's just low res, but I'm like, what's the deal with the face on this one?
The greatest painter of disciplined pleasure between the wars was Georges Braque. In 1915, a fracture opened in Braque's career. He joined the army and he was shot in the head.
Oh.
There was no brain damage, but he couldn't paint for some years. When he got back to the easel, he had decided once and for all that he could push no further towards abstraction. There is in nature, he remarked, a tactile, I almost mean manual space. And this is what he explored in the still lives of the 20s and 30s.
Very Picasso.
If ever a group of paintings made concrete the desire for measure, sublimation, attention, and calm, it was these. The objects are ordinary. A guitar, newspapers, bottles, the routine subjects of Cubism. But each is given its exact visual weight. He wanted to distribute one's attention across the painting as evenly as possible. What all this meant was
I do
an
love
ambition
this. I love the
different from
colors.
Cubism to pick
I love
up
the, like,
and
white borders
reassemble
on
the
everything.
pieces of the French tradition of still life painting that Braque, as a Cubist, had helped to shatter. The result is solider than Cubism, less hypothetical. He even mixed sand with his paint to give it more body, to endow it with a more resistant surface, like
some
fresco,
grit.
and to insist
everybody
upon
think
a
he paints on the
slowness of
beach.
inspection, parallel to the immense deliberation which he brought to the act of painting. There wasn't very much of Picasso's output over the same 25 years that could really equal that kind of frozen music. But then, Picasso had no talent for serenity. His whole idea of pleasure was much more prehensile than Braque's. He wanted to seize and touch and absorb and enter the objects of the Mediterranean. He liked strong, specific sensations.
Really subsumed said, Robert Hughes fully clothed, loitering on a nude beach. Don't forget about the camera crew. Important. Who is only zooming in on women's titties. Honestly, I love his look. The, like, open shirt, cool look, I think. Nice, good. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, buckle up, everyone. Wow, alright. Cool. Interesting juxtaposition. Okay. Delicious. I love that. Coriander? Coriander? Good. Classic beach pulling and tugging. Nice. Okay, naked baby this time. Oh, another naked child. This one's... Yeah, that child in the painting wasn't naked. Why'd you have to show me a child that was naked? This child's fully clothed, like neck to toe, covered in clothes. It might have even had gloves on.
The feeling was sex. Picasso never tried to hide what he felt about it, and when his fear of women was aroused, and it often was, he had to paint it out. So, at one end of the scale, he produced some of the most demonic images of women ever done. This isn't distortion, it's more like dismemberment, killing the witch. But on the other hand, he painted some of the most intense images of sexual pleasure in all modern art.
Yep, that's what I think of when I see this one, that's for
They
sure.
were provoked by his affair with a woman named Marie-Thérèse Walter, whom he met in 1931.
She loved birds.
In the paintings, her body becomes
do love
not
this
so
painting. I
much a
think it's very
structure of
pretty.
flesh and bone as a series of orifices looped together by that sinuous line.
I don't know if that's how I would have described it personally, but okay, Robert.
The point is not that Picasso managed to will himself into the skin of this woman. Not at all. He depicted his own state of arousal and projected it on his lover's body like an image on a screen.
Sometimes
Her
I can
body
feel the
is
toy just hit
reformed
Tater
the
right in
shape
the
of his
face.
desire,
I'm like,
and
whoops.
it's recognizable to anyone. It was about this time that
Good work,
Picasso
Tater, you
began to
killed it.
mythologize himself as the Mediterranean artist with a series of etchings called the Vollard Suite.
That's what Tater burns you.
One part of this marvelous cycle is autobiographical, or at any rate, in a loose way, self-descriptive.
That's a nice
The
one.
sculptor and his model, she the passive and obliging nymph, and he the
Yeah, thank
genius
you for only
of the
zooming in
place,
on the
a sort of
woman's
river dog in
genitalia.
costume.
Barely see the man's. I respect it.
These prints were Picasso's invocation of the past. They enabled him to place himself in Arcadia. The Vollard Suite was one of the most convincing parts of a general revival of antiquity seen in terms of the cult of the sun, of pleasure and the healthy body that went on in the 1920s and spilled over into the 1930s. It goes without saying that there was a much more complicated and doubt-ridden Picasso behind these antique simplicities. Picasso's image as the old man of the sea was to some extent a role, just as Hemingway's famous cojones were a mask worn on the groin.
What?
Nevertheless, the Vollard Suite remains the last major work of art to be directly inspired by the classical Mediterranean.
I feel like that's as close as you could
It's
say
the end of an immense
these
tradition
nuts.
that lasted for more than 2,500 years and then perished
I think it's a buoy in
amid
the
the
water.
historical disjuncture,
Or
the
someone
suffering,
swimming.
the physical ruin, and the irony of the 20th century.
Maybe it is
Within
someone
40
swimming,
years
actually.
of the completion of the Vollard Suite, officials in Athens were debating whether to remove the caryatids from the Acropolis and replace them with fiberglass copies, and the whole Côte d'Azur was one mass of pinball machines and pizza parlors from end to end.
Readjust it.
Of course, the more the tradition receded, the more famous Picasso became. He turned into a kind of living fetish object. He was famous as no other artist ever had been. But none of his later Arcadian images were going to carry quite the same conviction as the Vollard Suite, because World War II had killed the classical Mediterranean just as surely as World War I killed the Belle Époque. One of the first tremors of modernism is in a poem by Mallarmé called The Afternoon of a Faun. And its very first line runs, "I would perpetuate these nymphs." Picasso's motto
Wow,
too.
look at that one.
But those nymphs couldn't survive except as a sort of dumb decor.
Do you
after
think
Auschwitz and
Picasso was
Hiroshima,
a
or even after
boobs
Guernica.
man or an ass man?
And Picasso's
think we
efforts
might have our
to
answer on
maintain
that one.
Arcadian art in his old age began to look less and less convincing. This didn't happen with the aging Matisse, whose art in the early 1940s was suddenly clarified by a brush with death. There was long surgery and then a long convalescence.
My terrible operation has completely rejuvenated and made a philosopher of me. I had so completely prepared for my exit from life that it seems to me that I am in a second life.
Wow.
He expressed this rebirth not with a brush, but with scissors and coloured paper. He cut out shapes and pinned them on a wall or a sheet of paper, and
This is
cutting
Matisse,
straight into
yes?
colour, he said, reminded him of
Yes.
the direct carving of a sculptor. It linked drawing and colour in one sweep of the hand. The images were like heraldic emblems of pleasure, signs for well-being. At an age when most
the
painters
answer's
are
right in
either
the same,
dead
very
or
good.
repeating themselves, Matisse had re-entered the avant-garde and redefined it. These cutouts were the most advanced painting and perhaps the most august being made in Europe. They showed the wholeness of gesture that most abstract painting wanted but didn't always reach. The fast coordination of hand, mind, eye and memory as the scissors flowed through the paper. One cut, the essence of decision. And then the pleasurable digestion, moving the shapes around, pinning them here and there until the harmony was reached. The cutout summed up what he had learnt about Islamic art over the years since his first visits to North Africa and Spain.
Interesting.
One of their sources lies
It's
in
gorgeous.
Moorish tiles in the walls of the Alhambra in Granada.
Taking a
But
picture.
they were more than decorative, because Matisse, more than any other artist except Picasso, had saturated his work in the memory of physical sensation, of sunshine and water, the ecstasy of healthy bodies, salt and wine and flowers, the Mediterranean world, which he evoked
Oh, it's like
for
a
the
whole
last
room.
time
That's a cool way
in
to do
frieze
it.
of diving figures, the swimming pool.
We love a swimming pool.
This was his farewell to a subject which had been one of the tests of an artist's virtuosity since the 15th century. The human animal in energetic movement, the body stripped of its guilt, an end in itself. Between 1947 and 1951, Matisse was continuously busy with what he called the last stage in an entire lifetime
stained
of work
glass
and the apex of an immense, sincere and difficult effort. It was also probably the last major work of art that Catholicism would be able to evoke in our century. And this was the Dominican chapel.
What a wild thing to
here in
say.
Vence,
I love when he says shit
for
like
which
that.
He designed just about everything. The murals, the stained glass windows, the crucifix, the lot.
That's so cool. This is awesome. Where is this church? I would be fascinated to go. He said, like, this is the last, like, piece of art Catholicism will make to move us in our century or something. Something incredibly hyperbolic. I do love this church. I do love church architecture. Wow, even on the fabric, that's cool. Oh, excuse me. Wow. Glad he still got one of the titties in there. Wow. Cool. One thing because I think Sister Wendy also talked about this, but she didn't really show it as in depth as this is. Oh, bye, Tater. I'm just watching Tater. He's behaving a little strangely, but I think he's just being a cat. I think it's also the heat. Yeah, lie on the tiles, buddy. It's your cool spot. I'm glad they luxuriated on this one. I was engaged with this. We got to see all the art versus just like, here are a bunch of people eating seafood.
It was a hard act to follow.
Jump scare.
In secular terms, there was everything to be learnt from Matisse. He was the most influential painter of the third quarter of the 20th century, as Picasso had been of the second quarter and Cézanne of the first, especially in America. But there was something in his work that wouldn't transplant across the Atlantic. What wouldn't transplant was its Mediterraneanness, that ease and sensuous
What are the Twin
completeness
Towers?
that was rooted in Matisse's own youth. This wasn't a matter of style.
Oh my god, I love
It was
him in
matter
a
of complete
freaking
attitude
cemetery,
towards
just lounging
life,
away.
How to live it and how to sustain human relationships, which came out of the 19th century and for thousands of people was wrecked by the last World War. After that, you could paint Matisse's, certainly, but you couldn't be Matisse. That particular paradise was closed, especially if you happen to live in a highly utilitarian society fueled by pragmatism and guilt, like post-Freudian America.
Fascinating. All right, what a sentence to end on. Anyway, I'm just gonna let the music play out, but I'll
Stay
turn
with
it
us
down.
here on BBC4 as the footballers take on the
No,
Musos
shush.
in
Okay,
Charleston Hatch
I take it back. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Yeah, I'll do it with sound off so you can watch the credits if that interests you. Ooh, I looked up the church is called Chapelle des Rosières de Venice. It's in France. Nice, makes sense. Anyway, thank you all for watching and joining. I really enjoy going through these. Again, not as good as Sister Wendy's. I think we can trim things up a bit. But why don't we raid next lander? I will see you all over there. And I should be back tomorrow. So I'll see you there. Goodbye, gamers. Thanks, friends. See you later.